Hey everyone, welcome back to the Intuitive Creators Podcast, a space for creatives, healers, and soul led entrepreneurs who are ready to trust themselves, embody their truth, and create aligned impact without the burnout. I'm your host, Mandee, and today we are diving deep into one of the most powerful and sometimes confusing questions on the spiritual path. Is this intuition or anxiety? This is one of the most common questions I get from my community and clients, and it's something I still navigate myself. So, if you've ever felt paralyzed trying to make a decision because you can't tell if it's your inner knowing or your fear talking, this episode is for you. Let me share a quick story, one that's personal, just for you. There was an opportunity recently where I was invited to speak at a retreat. In my mind, it sounded like a dream. The location was beautiful. The audience was exactly who I thought I wanted to reach, and it promised big exposure. But something in me felt restricted. I couldn't explain it either, which was frustrating. My mind said, "Don't be ungrateful. This is a great opportunity." But my body said, "Something's off." I paused, journaled, meditated, all the things. I pulled a few cards, lit a candle, and asked for clarity from my guides. All of the usual things. And I realized my anxiety wasn't about fear of failure or success. It was trying to keep me safe because the energy of the event wasn't aligned with how I hold space. The organizers' intentions felt more performative than purposeful. And I know deep down, I wouldn't feel grounded in that container. It wasn't about fear of visibility, it was a deep knowing. And energy doesn't lie. So I said no. And while part of me was worried I'd made a mistake, within 2 weeks, I was asked to lead a smaller, more intentional circle that felt like coming home. That single no became a boundary that affirmed my worth and values. That's the power of listening. So, what I learned from this is intuition doesn't always feel like calm clarity right away. Sometimes it stirs everything first, especially if you're healing a nervous system that's been taught not to trust itself. And within that, we tend to think to ourselves, if I say no to this, then there's not going to be any other opportunities. And that's really limiting. I don't know if I can truly believe that whole idea anymore. And that could be just because I've, deconstructed that general understanding in the last few years of my own personal path and my lessons. But I do see this a lot within other people, and I try my best to remind those around me that saying no is just as powerful as saying yes. And not in the way of you're closing a door that's never going to open again. It's really just understanding your own worth and what your value brings to a table, to a space, or to a group. So, with that said, there are other themes within that story that I would urge you to listen to the last episode. Free doesn't equal exposure. I definitely plan on doing more on that subject, so stay tuned. The inner voice versus the inner critic. Let's start with the difference between intuition and anxiety. They both speak to us internally, but their tone, energy, and timing are very different. Intuition is calm, it's clear, It often speaks in quiet nudges or a soft, knowing voice. It might feel like a whisper or a gentle pull in your body, usually in your gut, chest, or even your third eye. If you're into chakras, then I highly recommend looking up the third eye to explain more of this specific topic. Anxiety, on the other hand, is loud. It's urgent. It often shows up as racing thoughts, worst case scenarios, and that tight, clenched feeling in the body. Your nervous system might be activated. Your breath might be shallow. Your mind is trying to figure it out. So ask yourself, does this message feel expansive or contractive? Interesting question, right? If it's intuitive, it may feel scary, especially if it's guiding you toward growth, but it will feel aligned and truthful underneath the fear. Anxiety often feels like you're shrinking, spinning, or reacting. But here's the tricky part. If your nervous system is dysregulated, even your intuition might feel like a threat because things, they switch, right? So you won't trust your intuition because your nervous system isn't regulating itself. It's not finding that equilibrium like it needs to. That's why so many of us feel confused because even our yes can feel like panic. Not because it's wrong, but because it's new, it's different, it's expanding us. So please remember this: anxiety is fear driven. It tends to be loud, fast, urgent. It loops, it overthinks, it wants a safe answer right now. Intuition is quieter, it's more grounded. It's a knowing that rises within without all the noise. And sometimes it whispers once and then waits for you to notice. How beautiful is that? Why this confusion happens. Now, let's talk about why so many of us get confused. First of all, we live in a culture that glorifies logic and dismisses inner knowing. From a young age, we're taught to override our feelings in favor of rules, expectations, and the oh so lovely people pleasing habits. If you're a sensitive or spiritual person, you may have been gaslit or dismissed for your intuition. So over time, you learned to doubt it. That doubt can become a breeding ground for anxiety, especially when we feel unsafe or uncertain. Another reason is trauma. We have to talk about this part, and I'm sure I could talk about it for episodes upon episodes, but for the sake of right now, we will dive into just one part of it. So, when we've experienced trauma or been in environments that weren't safe, our nervous system can become hypervigilant. That means our anxiety is always scanning for danger, even when we're actually safe. It's trying to protect us, but it can confuse the signal. So, how do we start trusting our intuition? Well, as a yoga teacher, I could totally give you like so many more things in terms of like practices and things, but I'm going to give you the ones that make sense to me right now. So, here are a few powerful practices that have helped me and have helped my clients. Slow down. Intuition doesn't scream, it whispers. If you're moving too fast, you won't hear it. Take a few deep breaths. Place your hand on your body. Ask yourself, what do I know to be true right now? Body awareness. Your body is a sacred compass. Learn the language of your body. Does this decision feel open or tight, heavy or light? Your body speaks before your mind catches up. Journaling. Write out your fears and your truth. Ask, what is my fear trying to say? What is my intuition guiding me toward? Let both voices speak, then look for the deeper wisdom. You might be very surprised by it. Practice discernment. This is one of the bigger ones, to be honest with you. This and just asking yourself and coming into introspection. Not everything we feel is truth, and not everything that's scary is bad. Over time, the more you practice listening inward, the clearer it gets. Create rituals or any sort of practice that makes sense to you. So, whether it's meditation, yoga, or pulling tarot cards, consistent spiritual practice helps you reconnect with your intuition regularly so you can recognize it more easily. So, the more you practice, the stronger that the skill becomes, because to me, intuition really truly is a skill. Something that we, again, as a society have, learned to, or more or less unlearned to appreciate or to listen to, or even just to solidify trust. Be kind to yourself here. Your nervous system is doing its job, trying to keep you safe. But safety and truth are not always the same thing. Because when your system feels held, you'll start to notice that your intuition speaks more clearly, more consistently, and you trust it because you've rebuilt that trust within yourself. Again, intuition is a skill, and like any skill, it gets stronger the more we use it. It also requires self-trust, and self-trust comes from being in relationship with yourself, not perfect, but present. So let me ask you this, love. What would it feel like to trust your inner voice, even when it's quiet? Even when it makes no logical sense, but your soul lights up just thinking about it? Your intuition is a gift. It's not broken. You just might need to clear some noise so you can hear it again. So I want to take a few moments to, I want to pull a card from the Rider-Waite Tarot deck. It's the classic, of course. I know it's very popular among the tarot girlies and fellas. But I really want to pick up a card, just one card that represents this subject in its truest form. Oh my. Oh man. I have the Six of Pentacles out here, which is funny because when I was shuffling the deck before I hit record, this is the card that came out. Prime example of intuition, like really strong intuition. And I know for me, that's been like a continuous practice. Six of Pentacles. If you're not familiar with tarot, it's okay. I will explain it in layman's terms. But Pentacles are tangible items. It talks about money. It talks about grounded energy, the material world, those kinds of things. It's also, represented by Earth. So with Earth as an element, it stays where it is. So it does talk about stability. So Six of Pentacles specifically is about reciprocity, right? So you're in this space of getting to know your intuition better. I love that. And really just honing in on what is equal for you. So I'm not sure why I'm getting that specifically And if you're not familiar with how I read, I'm an intuitive reader, so I don't always just go off of the meanings of the traditional cards. So for me, it feels like you're learning to give back to yourself in an equal effort, right? But maybe also you're in more of a receival space within feminine energy. So you could be learning how to receive the messages, to just hold space for them, and really discern what is what, right? What is up, what is down, what is side, what is the other side, right? So what I'm talking about here is trusting that voice and trusting your own path. Within that, you become present back into the moment, you ground yourself, and you really do feel safer knowing those things, right? So, and sometimes, that message that comes up, it's not the message that we want, right? And likely so, like, it's not always supposed to be the fun message. I say that because there have been many times where my intuition has spoken to me, and it has been something where it has felt, disappointing or frustrating, depending on whatever the situation has been. But within that, I still listened to it. I held space for it. I felt what I needed to feel. And I trusted that this was the route that made the most sense because I listened to my body. I know for me, my yoga and meditation practices have helped me with that. So if you're not somebody that's into those things, I highly recommend doing your best to find something that works for you, like even just doing 10 minutes a day of meditation, right? With yoga, it's like you don't have to be going to a yoga studio. You don't have to be wearing the latest yoga pants to be in a space of, I'm connected to myself, or I'm learning to develop who I am and what that looks like. It doesn't have to be that. Maybe you go onto YouTube and you find a like series of yoga, sequences or classes and stuff, and you just start there. Or maybe you do find somebody that you know that does do yoga, and then you can go out into nature together, roll out mats, and literally just practice together. Maybe you just follow what they're doing, right? Whatever that might be. Maybe it's, maybe journaling is something that's really accessible to you. I feel like the more we look inward, the easier it becomes to hear that voice that is a little bit more quiet, right? So I'm happy to see that this card has come out. This is very interesting to me, simply because I love the message within it. 6 also for me as a number, it being even, it's like there's this balance within partnerships and relationships, and that can just be the relationship that you have to yourself, right? That one is the most important relationship you will ever have in your entire lifetime, is the one that you have with you. So if you're not already doing these practices, then maybe try some of them, try one at a time, or maybe find something else that's like similar, right? It doesn't have to be these things. I never want anyone to think that I'm telling them to do specific things, right? There's different methods for everybody, right? So I want to give you a takeaway practice. So outside of this lovely tarot card that was presented for us, I want you to write a letter from your intuition to your anxiety. You heard me right. Tonight, I want you to write a letter from your intuition to your anxiety. Let it say what it needs to say. Let them meet. Let them be friends. And remember, you're not alone on this path. I'm walking it with you. So if this resonated, share this episode with someone who needs a little permission to trust themselves today. And until next time, trust your voice, trust your path, And as always, stay sacred. Bye, friends.